Hey, we don't own any of this shit. Squad. 5 years ago, if you were to tell me I'd be doing an analysis video on My Little Pony, I'd slap you in the face. And yet, here I am, talking about what has now become my favorite show of all time. If you haven't seen the show, you must be wondering why me and many other adults are watching this show designed for selling merchandise to little girls. This week's episode is titled My Little Pony and the Unstoppable Flow of Time. Let's get in this hole right now.
Anyone else smell a trap?
Sorry, that was me. Guys, no matter what happens, don't give up!
Right when the episode starts off, it lures you into the magical world of Equestria with some gorgeous locales and some soothing music that really puts the viewer at ease. The opening scene has a warm blue sky with crisp, colorful green grass that immediately put me in a relaxing mood. One of the best parts about the show is its chill factor. While many shows I watch and adore are concerned about the fate of the world and the characters that inhabit it, are about challenging the viewer with hard, unanswerable questions and shock value, MOP is comfortable with dealing with ordinary slice-of-life problems that many people will come across in their day-to-day lives. One such problem occurs at the onset of the episode, where our protagonist, Twilight Sparkle, finds out her brother, Shining Armor, is getting married. Twilight is pissed because her brother told her about this monumental event through a letter and not in person. She and her brother were peace and a pal when they were growing up. How could he not include her in this monumental decision? While the episode's primary conflict, the question of whether or not Twilight will reconcile with her brother, is small in the grand scheme of things, it is most certainly not small to Twilight, and as such, the viewer finds themselves invested in the conflict as well. Twilight and the squad make their way to Camelot, where the wedding is taking place. They've been enlisted in helping the wedding go smoothly, each of the main characters given a task that suits their talents. As they get closer and closer to their destination, everyone is thrilled and dicking around, all except Twilight. My nigga Applejack asks her what's wrong, and Twilight admits that she's afraid she no longer has a place in her brother's life now that he's starting a new family. They reach Camelot, which is surrounded by this huge mystical force field. The first red flag that this episode's low-key conflicts will inevitably escalate. How the fuck do you say inevitably? Turns out the force field was created by Shining Armor, who raised it after a threat was made against the city. He's been so busy protecting the crib, he hasn't had time to dip until Twilight he's been getting some bomb-ass pony pussy from her old babysitter.
Hey, bum-ass pony pussy, man.
Hashtag BAPP. Twilight and her old babysitter, Cadence, used to be really close, so Twilight finally finds herself excited about the wedding too. She loves the person her brother is going to be spending the rest of his life with. Why wouldn't she be crunk? Shining Armor even offers to make Twilight his best mare, and a thrilled Twilight accepts. But when she meets Cadence again for the first time in years and tries doing their adorable ass handshake thingamabob, Cadence just looks at her like she's fucking retarded. Shining Armor says that he's glad that Twilight is here, and Cadence agrees, but Twilight isn't convinced that Cadence is being genuine. The episode continues as Cadence oversees the rest of the main characters in her wedding preparation. Twilight is watching all the while, taking Cadence's criticism of her friend's work as a personal slight against them. During a chill session after a long day at work, Twilight announces that she thinks Cadence is tripping balls. She's been hella demanding of everyone the whole day, so clearly she's a complete bitch. The squad does not agree, citing the fact that she's about to get married. This is the most important day of her life. Why wouldn't she want everything to be done perfectly right? This is a subtle lesson about empathy. Too often, we see things from our own personal bubble. Because Twilight has a personal history with Cadence, she expects Cadence to act exactly as she did when she was a kid. But sometimes, people change, and there's nothing you can do about it. The squad has no such personal history with Cadence, and as such, rightly give her the benefit of the doubt. As Rarity aptly points out, any negative behavior she may be displaying is simply the result of nerves. But Twilight's going through her early life crisis, and bluntly describes Cadence as an awful pony who doesn't even deserve to know Shining Armor. AJ counters that Twilight is simply being possessive of her brother, but Twilight disagrees, saying that there shouldn't even be a wedding. I'm finally at the point of the episode where I can stop this bullshit recap nonsense and get into my analysis. Let's stop and take a look at the subtext of what we've summarized thus far. The heart of this story isn't just about Twilight being upset with her brother for not telling her about the wedding in person. This is about Twilight being fundamentally terrified of change. To quote the amazing anime Nana, shouts out to my boy Jarvis for the recommendation, people can spend their time together, but ultimately, we're all alone. Everyone's got their own life to live. And I know that it's impossible to make someone mine, but sometimes that realization makes me even more lonely. Twilight must be recognizing this fact in the midst of the wedding preparation, which drives her actions in the episode's second half. Personally, I'm at a period in my life where my entire family is split apart. My parents are separated, my younger sister went off to college, and my eldest brother just left to go off to the Navy. I can relate to Twilight even more so than when I first saw the episode 3 years ago. The past is warm and nostalgic, but the future is cold and unknown. We both don't know what's going to happen to us in the future, and that's scary as hell. It's natural to want to take control of your life in some fashion. As a writer, the way I take control of my life is by creating my own universe, essentially playing God. But Twilight tries to take control of a life that's not hers to live, her brother's. Time is a bitch though. No matter how much you struggle, you can't stop change. It's simply the natural order of things, and if you don't go with the flow, you'll simply drown under the waves. Twilight continues to fight her way up the current, going up to her brother all teary-eyed. When Twilight is about to tell her brother that she thinks he's making a big mistake, Cadence interrupts and asks to speak with her soon-to-be eternal fuck buddy in private. Cadence gets all bitchy with her hubby about his choice of attire, and the couple starts to argue, when a crippling headache makes Shining Armor kneel in pain. Cadence performs a seemingly twisted, scary-looking spell on him before helping him to his feet. Twilight then becomes convinced that Cadence is straight up evil, then rushes to her friends for support. But when she gets there, the squad is all dressed up, and it turns out they're Cadence's new bridesmaids. Cadence didn't say what happened to the old bridesmaids, but everyone is thrilled. Sans Applejack, who fronts, "This is so exciting!" before looking away, so the audience knows she's bullshitting. This is a callback to Season 2's excellent premiere episode, A Return to Harmony, where a brainwashed Applejack makes the exact same facial expression. One of the best things about this show is how it treats its supporting cast. Despite the fact that Applejack is not the focus of this episode by any means, the fact that she's nervous about the wedding throws her conflict into the mix as well. Applejack is a simple farm girl, and then she finds herself playing a crucial role in the forefront of a wedding between two huge political figures, and that obviously scares the shit out of her. The thing about Applejack is that she's an orphan. Her parents died at a young age. She grew up to take control of the farm all on her own, raising her younger sister in the process. The fact that this grown-ass woman who went through so much shit as a kid is scared of a wedding adds another complex layer to her character. Had she not been so invested in upholding her mask, the normally perceptive Applejack could have realized Twilight was upset, and the two of them could have solved the episode's conflict together. But as an amazing person once said, you treat your supporting characters like they think they're the main characters of the story. And as such, Applejack is none too the wiser about Twilight's struggles, being far too invested in her own to notice. This is literally a blink and you miss it moment. The cut from Applejack looking away to acting thrilled again lasts literally less than a second. And yet the storyboarders threw that little tidbit in. You want to know why people are obsessed with this show? Because of attention to detail like this. To get this reference, you'd have to be paying attention to everything going on in past episodes and in current ones. The writers don't treat these characters like they're merchandise designed for mass appeal consumption for the lowest common denominator. They treat these characters like people, and as such, the audience cares about them like they would their own friends and family. If you're an up-and-coming writer interested in the storytelling business, sit down and take some fucking notes. A distraught Twilight flees the scene, realizing there's no way her friends will validate her concerns now that they've got such a personal stake in the wedding as well. Later that day, the squad begins their wedding rehearsal. When Cadence enters the room, Shining Armor's big blue eyes go as wide as the fucking Pacific Ocean. Another one of the things I love about this show is how expressive the characters are. Their faces are just so human, it's impossible for me not to fall in love with these ponies. I've seen people complain about how they think Shining Armor's character is flat, and while there may be some merit to that argument, it doesn't bother me one bit. I don't need to know Shining Armor's whole personal background, or his favorite color, or his favorite food. I see this guy's face, and I see how in love with this woman he is, and I can't help but smile. I hope one day I meet a girl that puts that kind of smile on my face.
And then widen your eyes.
The wedding festivities are put to a screeching halt when Twilight barges into the room, declares that Cadence is evil, and sends her running away crying. Just look at her face. She's clearly taking pleasure in seeing Cadence squirm. This is the first scene in the entire episode where Twilight finally feels in control of her destiny, and boy does it not last long. A pissed off Shining Armor proceeds to refute every single argument Twilight threw at them. As it turns out, Cadence wasn't putting a curse on Shining Armor. She was using her magic to heal the headaches he gets from casting that barrier spell. She's been acting bitchy the whole day only because she's had to put the entire wedding preparation on her back while Shining Armor is busy protecting the city. After telling his sister not to show up to the wedding at all, Shining Armor storms off, taking the squad with him. The moment where Twilight is lying alone in the castle is the lowest point she's been in the entire series thus far. She's fucked up before, sure, but never quite this bad. Even her adopted younger brother / son, Spike, and her foster mother / teacher, Celestia, abandons her in this moment, leaving her completely alone for the first time in the entire series. She sadly reminisces about the past in a heartbreaking reprise from the opening song, BBBFF, now knowing her big brother best friend forever never wants to speak with her again.
He was my big brother, best friend, forever. And now we'll never do anything together.
This scene was incredibly heavy-handed and sappy. Did it make me cry? Yeah. This little scene portrays another lesson not entirely spelled out for the viewer. Don't jump to fucking conclusions. Instead of pointing fingers and yelling, talk to people instead. Had Twilight calmly approached Shining Armor with her concerns, he could have refuted her argument and she still would have had a place in his wedding. But instead, she acted rashly, and as a result, her little accusation blew up in her face in the worst way possible. Twilight's moping is soon interrupted by Cadence.
I'm sorry. You will be.
Compare how this episode began to how it ended. We went from our main character enjoying a calm, peaceful picnic with her best friends, complete with butterflies and rainbows, to her literally descending into hell, surrounded by eerie green flames. In the grand scheme of things, the end of the episode's imagery isn't that dark, especially compared to a lot of other shows. But having spent hours in the whimsical, colorful world of My Little Pony, the sense of danger at the end of this episode is very, very real. This episode marks the true beginning of MOP's slice of life focus, gradually shifting to more adventure conflicts. And this episode gets that point across wonderfully. At any rate, the fact that the Cadence we've seen thus far turns out to be evil does not take away from any of the points I brought up, such as not jumping to conclusions and giving people the benefit of the doubt. In actuality, the writers were originally going to play this episode straight. The Cadence we saw during the episode wasn't an imposter. She really was just stressed out about the wedding preparation. But when they saw the potential to escalate this grounded slice of life conflict to a high stakes fantasy one, the writers took their ball and ran with it. And in my opinion, it was a great decision. Meanwhile, MOP is constantly changing up the world of Equestria, and my interest in the show has only grown as the lore expands bit by bit. Part 2 of the episode begins with Twilight trapped on the ground, surrounded by a sea of her reflections. Cadence taunts her, and at first, Twilight is cowering, but when her brother is threatened, she gets pissed. She blasts laser beams all throughout the cavern, eventually blasting a hole in the wall, revealing Cadence's location. An enraged Twilight tackles Cadence to the ground, and it looks to me that she's ready to blast a hole through Cadence's skull. Cadence says that she's the real deal, and Cadence that Twilight met on the surface was an imposter. But Twilight's not buying it. Yet when Cadence does their adorable ass handshake thingamabob, a stunned Twilight realizes that Cadence is telling the truth. When she embraces Cadence without heartfelt, "You remember me," I can't help but get teary-eyed. The first episode brings up the idea that sometimes people change and you can't do anything about it. People you were once inseparable with drift apart as they go on throughout their lives. For a show called Friendship is Magic to bring up this idea, it's called a deconstruction. Not all friendships last forever, after all. But this second episode reminds us that this is not always the case. This is known as a reconstruction. When taking this two-parter as a whole, the storytelling device the writers use is known as a decon-recon switch. By acknowledging the fact that not all friendships last forever, the viewer can take pride that, at least in this one circumstance, their friendship is genuine. Just like Twilight and everyone else on the planet, I've been burned by people who I thought cared about me. But this episode reminds us not to give up on people just because of one bad experience. Yes, sometimes people change, and when that happens, you have to accept that and move on. Time waits for no man, and unless you want to drown under the waves, you'd better swim with the current. But sometimes people don't change, and the bonds you shared with them will last a lifetime. Remember that. Well, that about does it for my analysis. Yeah, I could recap the second episode, but really, I'd just be doing you and the show a disservice. The contrast from episode 1's internal conflict shifting from an external conflict was portrayed magnificently. Overall, I'd consider A Candlelight Wedding one of my favorite Disney movies. The music was amazing, the animation was superb, everything escalated in this point of the series. Actually, My Little Pony Season 2 finale aired around the same time of Legend of Korra Season 1 finale, and I found myself baffled. Why the fuck was My Little Pony better than Avatar? If you want to know what happens next in the episode, I strongly recommend you give it a watch. It's some damn good shit. There's a lot of subtle adult shit going on in this whimsical, colorful world if you bother to give it a chance. Whether you watch it or not, I hope I've gotten across the point that My Little Pony ain't just for kids. And if you share the videos with your homies, you'll be doing me a big favor. Team Spaceline is a growing YouTube channel. We can't grow without your support. Like and subscribe. I'll suck your dick! I think Corey Coleman did he do that one time?
Yeah, he did that one.
I'll suck your dick! But I can't say it like him. Hashtag BAPP.